Your journey has been super fascinating, but along the way, you also got this moniker of being India's Tony Stark or India's Iron Man attached. How did that happen?
Tonbo does that, right? They build fascinating new technology which does not exist in the world today, and technology which can potentially be a game changer for modern warfare, right? So we built a lot of different tinkering toys, right? We built a variety of systems at that stage. The fusion system was one of them. I found it gratifying at that time because you're pretty stoked to be called Tony Stark, right? Then I started finding it very amusing. Gets a lot of social capital with my kids. The night vision systems in terms of night enablement of the soldiers who went into Uri, a lot of the equipment came from Tonbo.
Okay.
In Sindoor, we built systems which essentially were used on the air defense guns. Right? These were night enablements of the Zu-23 guns, which essentially were used to shoot down drones. So the night vision systems which went in, the thermal imaging systems and the target tracking systems on the Zu-23 were ours. If you have 100 drones or 1,000 drones coming at you and you need to be able to disable them, how do you disable them simultaneously? So we are building this high-power microwave system which essentially can simultaneously disable 100 drones which are coming in, essentially fry their electronics. So it shoots microwave. So this is called wave strike.
Hello everyone, welcome to Meet India's Defencepreneurs. I'm your host Adith Charlie, and I bring you up close and personal with the men and women making Atmanirbhar Bharat a reality in India's defense sector. Today I'm joined by Arvind Lakshmikumar, CEO and founder of Tonbo Imaging. Arvind, thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you, Adith. Pleasure to be here.
Arvind, I want to take you to the very beginning of your entrepreneurship journey, or even slightly before that. You did your master's from BITS Pilani, went to the US, enrolled for PhD, didn't complete PhD but came back to India, started something exciting and then got into defense entrepreneurship. Walk us through that journey, and I'm also curious to know why you chose to come back to India and not continue being based in the US.
So when one is, of course, when you started a PhD because you didn't know what you're doing at that stage, right? You said this is something where I was always interested in research in computer vision and robotics, and the natural course was to go see what kind of advanced research can be done. But I realized I'm really not cut out to do 7-8 years of PhD, and my doctoral advisor, Professor Takio Kanade, is one of the foremost experts in robotics and computer vision. He still serves on our advisory board after so many years, and said it made sense to do some research. But I thought I think being an entrepreneur or building something in the industry was far more attractive to me as a calling, as opposed to being an academician.
Right.
So when we decided at that point, I dropped out of the PhD program, and I went to work for a company where I was working with the US Department of Defense, building fundamental technologies as part of their future modernization programs.
Right.
So this was part of the Future Combat Systems programs in the US, which is essentially a Boeing-led program. The US is not a place which we really felt that we fit in very well, and it was more from a personal point of view. So my wife and I, we decided we moved back to India because it's a place where we were born, we grew up, and we identified with our surroundings a lot more than what we did in the US, and that's when we came back to India. And when I came back to India, I started working with this company called Sarnoff Corporation, which is the former Stanford Research.
Right.
And most of the fundamental innovations in the world in consumer electronics actually came from Sarnoff. Actually, your LCD panel, your CMOS imager, all of them were invented at Sarnoff. Sarnoff was a fantastic research place. It was like it's like the Xerox PARC Palo Alto Research Center, where it built a lot of technologies, very good at it, but did not know how to commercialize it. Right? So we set up a center in India, and I used to run the engineering center here in India. In around 2008, 2009, they figured that they didn't know what they were doing in India. And they said they wanted to exit India. Right? They said, and we thought, look, if you're exiting India, here's an opportunity for us to take something which is already moving and build on it. So we did a management buyout, which essentially is to just restructure the existing company and created what is Tonbo Imaging today. So if I take a step back in terms of why we started, right? What we started. Our core expertise was in defense and automotive as an application, right?
Okay.
So I'd worked on the DARPA VSAM program. I'd worked on combat zones at sea and we had future combat systems programs in defense, and we worked on the DARPA Grand Challenge, which is for autonomous vehicles, and worked with automotive companies to build technologies for autonomous systems, right? So we understood as an application space, we understood automotive, and we understood defense and military quite well, right, as an application. From a technology point of view, we understood computer vision, robotics, imaging. So these are the core technologies that we understood. So we said whatever we were starting has to either, it has to build on what your core capabilities are. So our core capabilities is imaging and robotics. So let's build on that, right? And from an application point, we chose defense over automotive largely because in any business that you are in, you need to be close to the customer. Right? If we were in Silicon Valley, we would have chosen automotive because and that's just 15 years back. Today we would have chosen defense still because there you're building fundamental technologies in radar, lidar, everything which goes into autonomous cars. Building that in India and hoping that you're going to get these technologies inserted into a Mahindra or a Tata is difficult because India does not need autonomous cars, or at least it's not really feasible to have autonomous vehicles here, right? So, but defense on the other hand, we found it more interesting because India has always imported fundamental defense equipment from elsewhere, right? And India had a lot of great systems integrators, people who essentially got the technology from outside and built, the end system and the product. But we did not have any OEMs or original equipment manufacturers, right? And we said that is a gap that is missing here, right? We said we don't have original equipment manufacturers like a Boeing or an Elbit or a BAE Systems or a Sagem, but we have only integrators. So we said if India really needs to have sovereign capabilities, building that core technology stack is very important. So we said let's build and become an OEM from India, where we'll build it in India, but our goal is really build it in a form where it's suitable to be sold to most parts of the world. So that's how we started off with defense, and that's how we began.
Your journey has been super fascinating, but along the way, you also got this moniker of being India's Tony Stark or India's Iron Man attached. How did that happen?
So I'll tell you what happens, and I'll tell you what are the downsides to that as well, right? So many years back, one of the people who worked with me was a general a US general who was stationed with NATO, and he was asked by Hindu was doing some article on Indian companies, and then they had reached out and they found somehow that it worked, and then they had interviewed him, and he had said Arvind's like Tony Stark, right? And Iron Man. I find this, it's a mixture of three things, right? And the reason he said it, it's like Tony Stark is because he said just like Tony Stark and Iron Man essentially tinkered and built a lot of fundamental cool technology, right? Tonbo does that, right? They build fascinating new technology which does not exist in the world today, and technology which can potentially be a game changer for modern warfare, right? So we built a lot of different tinkering toys, right? We built a variety of systems at that stage. The fusion system was one of them, but we built a lot more, interesting systems. The point at that point, and the thing is that this is in over the last 10, 15 years. Ever since that happened in 12 or 2015, around 2012, 2015, right? I found it gratifying at that time because you're pretty stoked to be called Tony Stark, right? Because it sounds, really, really nice, and it seems like a great validation of someone who's a respected NATO general, seeing that, thinking that you're building stuff which is really cool, and doing that analogy was pretty gratifying. Then I started finding it very amusing because it got me a lot of social capital, right?
It's also high praise to live up to.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's high praise to live up to, and it gets a lot of social capital with my kids because I could go and tell them that we went and saw the movie. I said, you guys want to go Google, your father and Iron Man, and you'll find out there, right? So it got a lot of, it was amusing. Right. And then it got embarrassing, right? Now it's embarrassing because at that time, and this is embarrassing from a personal point of view, at that time, we truly, we could build stuff with absolute, abandon because I didn't have to worry about shareholder return. I didn't have to worry about any of this stuff, right? You could just say, we can go to a garage. We are building cool tech. Whether it makes money for a shareholder or not was not in 2012. You didn't think about it, right? But you wanted to build something which is fundamentally cool.
I think in 2012, Indian Jugaad was probably at its highest point.
At its highest, right? And you're saying, let's build, the goal is to build interesting stuff, right? Yeah. And whatever is interesting is great. Now, while what is interesting is great and people get excited by it, as a company grows, you start becoming a little bit more mature. You're expected to become a little bit more responsible. You can't be Tony Stark anymore. You need to behave like because ultimately these are people who have backed you. You need to be able to give shareholder return. You need to have a company which generates profit, right?
Correct.
So that's a measure which is extremely important, and what we live by is that. said, look, everybody, any company can be a startup. You can take investor money, burn it, and become a unicorn. But you want to be a true entrepreneur, right? A cycle rickshaw wala, a shop guy is a true entrepreneur. He's earning a profit at the end of the day, because if he doesn't make a profit, he's not going to survive, right?
Correct.
So you don't want to be a startup, because I think a startup is just burning someone else's money. You want to be a true entrepreneur where you are generating profit and returning value to shareholders. So along the way, he said, look, that's where the focus needs to be. So which took some of the joy out of being a tinkerer. Now we're getting back to it, because now we've created shareholder value. The business is generating profit. So now I'm actually going back to looking at new technologies that we want to build, right? And some of them are absolute fundamental game changers. Like for instance, we are going back to the drawing board to build this high power microwave system. So traditionally, when you look at these drones, most drones, if you want to take down drones today, people shoot your L70 gun or your Zoo gun at it, and you shoot bullets at it, right? Now, which means there's a lot of lead in the air. Now, what happens if you have 100 drones or 1,000 drones coming at you, and you need to be able to disable them? How do you disable them simultaneously? So we are building this high power microwave system, which essentially can simultaneously disable 100 drones which are coming in, essentially fry their electronics. So it shoots microwave. So essentially, if you put your cell phone inside your microwave and turn on the microwave, your cell phone will be fried, right? It does the same thing, but does this at 2 kilometers or 5 kilometers, right? It essentially takes all that energy. There's an antenna, and it directs that energy towards that drone over a wide area. You don't shoot anything at the drone, but you completely destroy the electronics. Now, this is technology which is super fundamental.
Right.
There are only 2-3 places in the world which have this technology, and they can't do long ranges. They can only do about a kilometer or so.
Is this similar to the Iron Dome in some sense?
No, this is actually, Iron Dome can use this, or the Sudarshan Chakra can use this, which is what we have right now, right?
Right.
But it's actually similar to what Epirus does in the US. Okay. So Epirus is an American company, and they've built high power microwave systems. Their range is still limited, so our goal is to be able to do anything in excess of 3 kilometers.
Okay.
So now this is a great opportunity for us to get back to tinkering, right? So I'm super excited about it.
Right. What's the name of this product again, you said?
So this is called Wave Strike.
Wave Strike.
So Wave Strike essentially is a high power microwave system built on something called a multi-beam klystron, right? So essentially what's inside your microwave is a magnetron. So this is something called a klystron, which essentially can generate very high energy.
Okay.
And you can essentially channel that energy to take down swarms of drones.
Is it still in the R&D phase?
It's in the R&D phase. We have an ongoing program with the Indian Navy, and we have a letter of intent from a foreign customer, unnamed classified program, where once we are ready with this is not going to be ready for the next couple of years, right? Because we are building it right now, and both of them have given us orders. So we will build it. When we build it, we will sell to these customers. But at least, so the reason to go get the validation both from the Indian Navy and from the European customer was, you want a customer to actually like what you're building. So we showed them core technology of what we built. We haven't built the product yet, we're still building it, but we showed them what we have here, right, in terms of the subsystems. And they were very excited, and they said, look, we will give you this. And then, so it gives us an opportunity for the next 2 years to have some fun and build something interesting.
Fascinating. Is that one of the main focus areas?
So in the past, what we did is, we built electro-optics and imaging systems.
Right.
So, but these were subsystems, right? We made sights which went onto a gun. We made subsystems which went onto an aircraft or went onto a missile. Right. But we didn't make the end system itself. So now what we are looking at is, let's start focusing on making the end system. Modern day wars are going to require different kinds of missiles. The high power microwave is one such kind of missile, right? So we will build that. Modern day wars cannot, today you have a lot of drones, but these drones are not really high-speed drones, right? And most of these drones can be shot down. They fly at like 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers, 250 kilometers.
Correct.
So we said, let's look at drones which are munitions which can fly at Mach 1 or Mach 2, subsonic, supersonic. So either jet engine propelled systems. So building jet engine propelled aerospace systems and high-power microwave are two big critical areas for us, right? And these are the two areas which we think, from a business point, we can add a lot of value and we can build, over the next, 5-6 years.
Interesting. So right now, your biggest customers would be spread across the world, right?
That's right. And
which is like the star product in your portfolio?
See, our core business is to enable autonomy in defense. When we do defense itself, so if you look at the products that we make, all the products that we make are products that enable autonomy in defense.
Okay.
And the idea is very simple. How do you assist humans how do you augment humans, and how do you eventually replace humans on the battlefield? Because if you can do this effectively, you essentially are going to, save many humans from getting shot, avoid collateral damage, right? So we said that's our core mission. So as a mission to enable autonomy on the battlefield, all the technology components that is required, so if you want to enable autonomy, you need to be able to see the environment. You need to see who your adversaries are. You need to see who your friends are. You need to be able to see through smoke, see through fog, see through dust. So you need to build good sensing systems, right? So you need sensors, imaging systems which are required.
Correct.
Now you also need to understand what's happening. So you need to understand how far is my enemy. And am I going to hit the enemy, or am I going to hit a friend, right? I need to have some kind of metric understanding of the environment, right? So you have to understand the environment. And third is, I need to be able to communicate. So I've seen and understood. I need to be able to communicate this to other people who can't see it, right? So I'm in a hill. I've seen what's around there, but somebody's far behind me. He doesn't know, and if he has to shoot a missile there, I need to communicate to him where the enemy is, right? So I need to be able to communicate efficiently. And fourth is, I need to be able to build systems which can guide and take control to be able to neutralize a threat. So as a company, we build across the stack. So we build sensing systems, we build scene interpretation systems, we build communication systems, and we build control systems to essentially take action, right? And our products, in terms of one is of course the fact that, when we started, the main thing in defense is, you don't want to be a one-trick pony, right? If you want to build a defense company, you want to be able to address everything that is required for an infantry soldier, for a special ops soldier, for a tank commander, for a UAV, for a missile, and for a naval submarine, right? So you want to build products which can go across all of them. So it's like choosing your favorite child. So we build a lot of products across all of them, but our biggest selling product are our tactical systems products, which soldiers use, which is essentially weapon sights. So we sell them in large quantities. So it's a question of products that are sold in large quantities and high volume and are priced relatively lower, to products that are sold in lower volume but which are far more complex, right? So so we build both ends of the spectrum.
I read somewhere that in the night vision equipment space, the lion's share of what the Indian Tri-Forces have sourced in the last few years have been from Tonbo. Could you tell us a little more about that?
India as a customer in terms of night enablement, right? So this is starting from 2012. So one of the things which we started in 2012 was, the initial products that we made were our thermal imaging systems. So these are infrared imaging systems which can see in complete darkness, right? So those are the kind of core imaging systems that we built in 2012. Now, at that time, majority of the procurements which happened in the Northern Command, which essentially is in Udhampur, and a lot of the central procurements, the CRPF, the BSF, the NSG, all the night vision systems in thermal imaging came from Tonbo, right? And fundamentally, because in the past, a lot of those systems used to come from outside. They were imported or they were built by Indian PSUs. One of the things which we set out to do at that point was, we went to the customer and told them that, look, you are not buying advanced technology because you think that it's very expensive. But what you need to look at advanced technology is look at what's your concept of operations. What do you need it for? If you're going to put this on a rifle, you don't want a weapon sight which weighs 1.5 kgs. You want a weapon sight which weighs 500 grams. And today, if I can give you a weapon sight which weighs 500 grams, which can last 8 hours and which can engage a target at 1 kilometer, that's what you need for your operations. So focus on building that. So over the years, and partly also due to the fact that we did make a lot of these sales to some of our international customers, and that gave a good reference point to the Indian customer, we built a portfolio of these systems which started getting inducted into the Indian Armed Forces. So a fairly large volume, right? And I don't know what the exact percentage is right now, but a significant percentage of infrared imaging equipment in the Indian Armed Forces came from Tonbo at that point.
There's also an interesting story of how the Ministry of Defense officials actually first spotted Tonbo's products, right?
So it's kind of funny, right? It was many years back, and this was in 2012. We built a multi-sensor imaging system which can see in daytime and see at night time simultaneously.
So it's a combination of infrared and
visible,
your normal visibility.
Because as a human, your eyes can see in the visible spectrum. You can see in daytime. But if I switch off all these lights, you can't see at night time, right? So, but the problem with traditional infrared systems is, while they can see at night time, they don't see color and they don't see texture. So you don't have features which are clear, right? But what if you could see texture, color, and you could also see at the night time and sense heat? Then you essentially can get the best of both. So we built some fundamental technology. So Tonbo owns a patent on multi-sensor fusion systems. And we built this at that time, and we built this to be with very low power. It was an incredible piece of core technology that we built, which is a fusion imager.
Interesting.
Now we built a product around it, and we said, look, who will actually adopt this product, because it is an interesting product. And so we took it to the US, the Navy SEALs and the Special Operations Command, and they bought the first couple of systems in there, right? And they use the system on a couple of exercises.
Okay.
So the Indian Armed Forces essentially had heard about it, and they said, well, and then they were told that, look, it came from this company in Bangalore, in Bangalore, and then we got a call from headquarters saying, why don't you sell these products out to India? Right. And we said, yeah, sure, we'd love to do that. It's just that we've never had an opportunity to actually sell it here, and so that's how it started. So that's how the Indian Armed Forces essentially, they had seen this product elsewhere, and they found that it was an interesting piece of equipment, and they found that it was built by an Indian company, and they wanted to buy it at that point.
But is this a common thing when you are selling to governments and militaries worldwide? Do they always want to see proof points from the like of, say, a US or an Israel?
So we sell to the special forces, we sell to the IDF, we sell to the Mossad.
Okay.
Now that they are not our primary customers at all, right? Our primary customer is the emerging market. India is an important emerging market. India is one of our most important customers. Other emerging markets around the world, right? Whether it's Africa or whether it is Philippines or Vietnam and Southeast Asia. Now, but the problem with a lot of these emerging markets, right, is if you went to them and if you walk in with a reference point saying, the US Navy SEAL is my customer. SEAL Team 6 deployed my product, deployed my system when they went to catch Osama bin Laden, right? Or if Mossad used my system when they went for a really critical mission, right? That is incredible reference point, right? And no questions are asked.
Yeah.
Because at that time, so they are so overawed with the fact that this is a product which is being used by best. So our model has been, let's lead with the best in terms of technology superiority, right? Let's build for it. But let's deploy large volumes in the markets which matter to us. And the markets which matter to us is the emerging market, right? And because that's where volumes are there. And most importantly, this is the market which is underserved. Because this is the market which you want to truly democratize, right? You want to make sure that infrared imaging equipment, night fighting equipment, advanced missile systems are all available to these markets, because that's where the volumes can come in, right? And so that's the way we look at our business. We said, let's do it only for reference points, but nothing beyond it.
Yeah. But the example that you mentioned, was your product actually used?
It was not used with in Osama bin Laden's case. No, but it was used by SEAL Team 6. So it was used by different SEAL teams. So the idea was, the interesting thing about some of these people who buy these products is they want even a 1% improvement in performance is extremely important to them, right? If you can save 10 grams or you can save 100 grams or you can increase your endurance by 1 hour, or you can increase your range by 20 meters or 50 meters or 100 meters, all of that is very important to them, right? And if every increment is important to someone who's already at the 99th percentile, right? And so we said, let's target that, because if you do that, the other big thing it gets you is it puts your R&D in overdrive mode, right? It gives you the ability to build great technology and focus on the technology, right? And at that time, and you're able to validate it against, if you can compete against, a Sagem in France or a BAE in the US, you know that your product is extremely good, right? And you know that the customer is buying your product because it's good, not because it happens to be cheaper, right? And I think that's an important validation for us, because that is something which we crave towards.
In a place like Bangalore, how do you compete for talent? How do you make sure that you get the right fit? Because competition is huge. Salaries are going up year on year, especially after the pandemic. How do you find the right kind of talent that sort of buys into the mission of the company?
So I think the people joining all have different aspirations at different stages of their life, right?
Yeah.
In the initial stages, let's say for instance, and I'll walk through these different sets of people who join in, right? People who are joining out of college or or just very early career. Many of them, let's say, want to go to grad school. So at that time, and this is how we did over the years also, right? We said, you want to go to grad school, you go work in a traditional company, you're not going to get experience building all these systems. You won't get the ability to do research in fundamental technologies. You're not going to get the ability to interact with faculty who are working with the company. I'll get you all of that.
Right.
Give me 2 years of your life. Do that. I'll write a reference letter for you to go to grad school. Our initial bunch of people, we had so many people in the company who came in, worked for 2 years. They went to top 10 grad schools in the US based on the credibility of what they built here. They did.
Lovely.
They published papers, they wrote patents, they worked, and they enjoyed their 2 years, right? And even in our mind, the understanding is very clear. These are people who are going to fly away after 2 years because that's the goal.
Correct.
Then you have people who have worked in MNCs, who are now in MNCs. If you're working in Texas Instruments, you're working in Qualcomm, you're working in NVIDIA, you're doing a great job, you're building stuff, but you're working on one small part of the problem, right?
Right.
You don't have visibility to the entire problem. So what we try to hire is people who have an aspiration to be a systems person.
Okay.
Who are saying, I don't want to just do coding on a chip. I'm interested in the product, and I'm interested in realizing the sale of the product to the customer, right? Now, believe it or not, there are a large number of people in the country, if given an opportunity to be a systems person, they would actually be a systems person, because then it gives them, it also helps them build their skill set.
Yeah.
That and the way you look at it is, it's not just because you want them to come and spend the next 20 years of their life working with you. You want them to be able to build enough of a skill set that even if they choose to leave you, they can go work anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And if you can give them that path, saying, look, you come to Tonbo, you're going to learn software, you're going to learn hardware, you're going to put the system, you're going to take it to a trial, you're going to be sitting in a customer site. Which other place are you going to be able to do that? You will not, and by the way, along with this, you will work with a Carnegie Mellon prof, an MIT prof, a University of Washington Seattle prof in building next generation tech. You have access to those people, you have access to a customer, you're building a product. The spectrum of things that you can do is going to be a lot more than what you can do at a traditional MNC. So our sales pitch or a recruitment pitch to many of them, to the young ones, is come here, we'll show you a path to go to great grad school. The older one, come here, you will build great skill. So tomorrow you go become, you want to run a company, you want to, and my motto is very clear. I don't want to hire people and say, I want you to come and stay here for life, right? Because you want to come here, you want them to experience the best of what they can give, and a company to experience the best of what they can give and what we can give them, right? So I think that's worked out quite well. So our attrition rates are extremely low, right? We have people who have been with us for a very long time because they just enjoy what they're doing, right? And we are a completely unmanaged company in the sense it is not hierarchical by any standards. People are allowed to break things.
Okay.
So we have been very clear that, look, if you don't break things, you will not learn. I don't care if you break things. We will lose money, but you will learn and you will be careful the next time. So we give, even a new person is thrown into the responsibility of handling expensive systems, expensive products. So you might think that, look, is it at the cost of you? It's not, because these people calibrate themselves very quickly. Once people are given the responsibility, they show responsibility very easily, right? So, and I think that's worked quite well for us.
Arvind, you have two other co-founders and they have been with the company and with you personally for a very long time. In this founder group, when there are disagreements, how do you resolve them? What philosophy do you implement there so that decision making doesn't get impacted and so that the company is able to continue the velocity without losing momentum?
So Ankit and Ankit Kumar and Cecilia. So Ankit is the Chief Business and Sales Revenue Officer,
right?
And Cecilia is the Chief Commercial Officer. Right? Cecilia is a chartered accountant with who handles finance and commercial operations. Ankit's a technologist who moved from being a CTO to becoming the Chief Business Officer, right?
Nice.
Both of them have been with me for 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
2005 is when in Sarnoff they both were hired in. Ankit came out of college. This is his first job. I was his first manager.
I see.
20 years working next to me. We have zero disagreement. We have zero. So actually, let me put it this way: we have zero fights.
Okay.
We have all three of us, right? Because the point is that there is implicit trust. In, let's say, for instance, if there is something related to finance, something related to accounting, something related to customs, something related to duty, we defer it to Cecilia without either of us even thinking about it, because she's a person who knows the most, right? Customer related things which are there, Ankit and I discuss and say, let's go. So funnily, which is the thing that we've had, I mean, because people say you have a team of founders, co-founders, there are disagreements, there are fights. We've not had any fights at all ever in 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
In 20 years, and it's fundamentally because each of us respects that what the other person can do and understands that the other person can do a better job at that particular job which is there, right?
Okay.
So you let it go, and I think that consensus and being able to work together in harmony, right? And 20 years is a reasonable period of time. It's not
definitely.
And 20 years, the fact that you've been able to work. It's not that we don't. We as I said, not that we don't disagree. We don't have fights.
Yeah.
We do disagree, definitely, right? We do
disagree and commit, maybe.
Commit and say that, look, we defer it to the person, right? You have, because you need to have the discussion to say that, look, do you think that this is the right way or that is the right way? Something to do, right? Or you have a debate. But you ultimately have to defer it to one person and then feel good about the fact that the person is making. And even if any of us is making a wrong decision about it, right? It's perfectly fine. It's not like you're going to come back and say, why the hell did you do, right? Because one of the things which we really, and what I really wanted in this company when we started it is, I want people to come to a company to be happy, right? I need this to be an organization where people are saying, because working is a very small portion of your, you got the rest of life to do, other things to do, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to come to work, and you don't want politics at work. You don't want all this, trying to figure out that is this the way I'm going to climb up the ladder and become an EVP or an SVP or a program director. You don't want any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You want people to come together, be able to respect each other and work well. And we figured if we three were doing it by example, the next group of people will do the same, which is what my CTO does. My CTO is Prashant, who's been with me 15 years. And so all of these people who are there, many of them have been people who have been with us for a very, very long time. Right? And these are people who have understood that this is the way we want the culture of the office. I don't care if our revenue slips. I don't care that if we make a mistake, if the product fails, nothing, right? But I do care about the attitude that we have with each other. Right?
Okay.
And because something breaks, I will not have somebody shout at somebody and say that he's broken it, right? Because the point is, everybody is putting in their effort. And I think that's worked very well with us, because I think people, it is a very, and of course, when a company becomes larger, some of these challenges come in more, right? When it is 50 people, 100 people, now at 350 people, maintaining that level of harmony is a challenge, right? But but that's the message you want to give people. That's what you value the most, right? You want harmony far more than anything else.
Absolutely. So from your experience of seeing stability at the top with your co-founders, what would be your top advice to other entrepreneurs who want to get into defense tech, build sustainable, scalable teams, both in terms of the co-founders that they pick and in terms of the opportunity or the problem statement that they go after?
See, I think in terms of co-founders, one of the key things in a core team is you need to have good complementarity of skills, right?
Right.
You have three people, and all three are core technical people whose interest is saying, building a system. You're going to have a lot of fights. You're going to have a lot of disagreements. You're going to have a lot of unhappiness, and you're going to have some of them leave, right? But if you have a team where it's very clear that each of your skill sets is unique to you, right? And you can do it much better than the others.
Right.
So your job as a team is to first go identify, even if you don't start off with that, right?
Yeah.
You start off with whatever you start with, but if you're able to partition between yourself, whether it is 2 co-founders or 3 co-founders, you're able to partition the core capabilities and say, the buck stops with me for that particular aspect. It doesn't stop with me for everything, but it stops with me for this particular aspect. I think then it becomes very harmonious, right? So I think that's something which is, I mean, there's nothing to do with defense. It's with any business, right? If you have co-founders, let's just make sure that is done the right way, right? And you need to have that kind of trust, because we implicitly trust each other, so it makes it much easier. So it's you don't have to worry about it so much. The second is in terms of what you're looking to build, right? And I think, and this is more true for the defense companies in India who are starting off, is that my recommendation is, do not build with the Indian customer as your goal, or an Indian spec that you're getting as a goal, right? And the reason being very simple, right? Because most companies they think that I'll build it in India. After I prove it in India, I'll be able to take the same thing and scale it for the rest of the world. That is not going to be possible, right? Because what you build for an Indian customer spec, if you take that spec and try to go compete on a European tender, or you go to the US and say, I'm going to take the product there, that product will not meet the spec what is expected there, right? Because
is it the spec that's the challenge, or is it the pricing?
It's a spec. Price doesn't matter, right? Price will be in fact cheaper, right? You're building it in India and the cost which is there. So price, because see, the point is that the customer there is not really worried about the price so much.
Okay.
They care about the spec, right? They care about, are you building something which is truly unique? Like for instance, we built these weapon sights. One of the compliments we got and the feedback we got from many of our initial customers was, they said your weapon sights are beautiful, right? And they're beautiful because they don't look like ugly, metal pieces kept there, because we said, look, you spend 1 lakh or 1.5 lakhs on an iPhone,
right,
because because you like the beauty of an iPhone, how you hold it. You're spending 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs on a weapon sight. You want it to feel good. You want it to be ergonomic. You want it to be easy to use, and you want to feel that you're holding because it's military. You don't want to have something which looks is
clunky,
clunky, right? Which is what the case was when we came in 2012. We said, look, our goal is, you need to think like Apple even when you're building something for the defense market. It needs to have ergonomics. It needs to have aesthetics.
Right.
It needs to have the Johnny Ive philosophy of building an Apple device needs to be there on a weapon sight, or needs to be there on your gimbal, right? And I think that's very critical. So the looks, the form, the ergonomics, and the fact that it's truly attractive, right, is important to us. Besides the functionality. Functionality is, needless to say, it's got to be top notch.
So you develop a prototype in-house.
Absolutely.
You show it to customers, and then
correct. So
depending on orders, you
build it, right? Because what happens? So typically, what happens in the past, defense companies or big companies used to have manufacturing fabs, right? So Tata or Bharat Forge would call their customers and say, look at my fab. I've got 100 acres land, 100,000 square feet place, clean rooms, people in hard hats. I have the capability, I have the capacity to manufacture what you want, right? I don't have that. So what I'm trying to demonstrate is, I have the capability to do it. Now I can demonstrate the capability only if I build the product. Right. Because if I show the product on a PowerPoint and tell a customer I have the capability to build it, he's not going to be able to believe it. Because when he goes to Tata or Bharat Forge, he's seeing the infrastructure, so he can understand capacity very well, right? So we said capability can only be shown if you build a prototype. So my investment is going to be into build a prototype. So we built, for instance, we have a program going on with Bharat Dynamics, where we make the missile seeker, which goes on to the Amoga missile, which is an anti-tank guided missile. Right. Now this is a missile seeker. Now missiles, because India wanted to indigenize it, we didn't want to buy it from either the Spike or the Javelin. We wanted to make our own Indian anti-tank guided missile. Now, if I went to Bharat Dynamics and said, I have the capability to make a missile seeker, Bharat Dynamics will say, well, look, everybody says they can make it, you can't make it. So we made a missile seeker, we took it to Israel, I found friendly partners who potentially will put it on their platform, test the whole thing, then came to Bharat Dynamics and said, by the way, here is a missile seeker I've made. Now I'd like to make this missile seeker to go onto your missile. The conversation is completely different. So my investment was not on CapEx, it was an R&D and the first product that was made, that I would have spent about $1 million doing it.
Right.
But that $1 million is far better well spent there than putting that $1 million in land and a facility. So our view is that is a much better option and better use of money in terms of demonstration of what you want to do.
Interesting. I also wanted you to demystify some of the terms we have used in this conversation.
Sure.
Missile seeker, for instance, what does it mean in a layman's language?
A missile seeker is the eyes and the brain of a weapon system.
Okay.
Right? So if you have a missile, if you're shooting something, you need the system that you're shooting, the missile, needs to know where to go, right? And it needs to know how to go there.
Right.
So it sees the image, it says, this is the image I want to, it sees an object, it matches that object and says, that is the object I want to hit. I've seen a tank, it classifies that as a tank, it understands that's an enemy tank, so now you know that's what it wants to hit. Now it needs to seek, so it needs to be guided towards it. So it needs a brain which tells it that the tank is moving, therefore you need to move. The tank is closed, so no point hitting it on the top, hit it on the side. Tank is open, you can hit it from the top. So the brain to tell it what to do. So a missile seeker essentially is the eyes and the brain of a missile system. That's all.
What does multi-spectral imaging mean?
So you remember when I started off, I told you that one of the first technologies that we built was this sensor fusion system, right? Which can see in the daytime, see in color, see texture, and sense heat.
Right.
A multi-sensor imaging system is essentially across the spectrum.
Okay.
So human eye operates in a visible spectrum, right? So that is essentially between 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers.
Right.
Infrared, which can sense heat, operates in 8 to 14 micron. So big wavelength, right? So two different spectrums.
Right.
So if you have a camera or a sensor which can combine both these spectrums. So you can see both of them together in the same image. That is what a multi-sensor imaging fusion system or a multispectral imaging system does. Essentially combines two different wavelength spectrums into a single image.
There was a lot of news, in the recent past about how India's defense capabilities are getting enhanced, especially in the, aftermath of Operation Sindoor. There's also a wave of defense procurement, emergency defense procurement that is happening right now. How do you look at these as opportunities?
Two things which happened after Operation Sindoor, right? And this is kind of similar with Operation Uri as well. I mean, with the Uri strike as well in the past, right? Whenever one of these things happen, sometimes there's a knee-jerk reaction, right? And the knee-jerk reaction essentially gets to let's buy whatever as quickly as possible. During a war, that's important, that's needed, right? And that's what Ukraine's been doing. Ukraine does constant procurement, then they innovated and they realized that it's no longer a 1-week war, it's a 3-year war. And they had to kind of
Do you have deployments right now?
We have deployments in NATO. We have deployments in Europe. Some of them are in places which are classified, but we do have deployments across NATO, right? After Operation Sindoor, one of the things was that we know that we have certain capabilities which are lacking, right? We know that we do want capabilities to be able to take down drone swarms, right? We know we need capabilities where we need very high speed drones, like I was telling you, right? So the government has started calibrating after the initial 2-week, 3-week of hurried purchase. They have calibrated it. Now the emergency procurement is, and the way they're thinking about it is more thought out and saying, let's think about what are the capabilities which we are potentially lacking here, and how do we equip ourselves over the next 6-9 months to make sure that the skirmish should have stopped there, right? But we know how our neighbors are, right? We don't know at what point things are going to flare up. So let's be prepared, let's build all this, but let's do it in a measured, calibrated fashion. So the emergency procurement, even though it's called emergency procurement, it's still a more calibrated procedure where the commands and the central procurement work hand in hand, specs are done, trials are done. A lot of new companies are coming up, right? A lot of new companies are demonstrating systems. And I think that's pretty critical, because I think now it gives them an opportunity to actually think it out and build it properly. Some of these jolts are good for the system sometimes, because then it allows you to rethink what you've been procuring in the past. We've been spending so much time thinking about we want to modernize a battle tank. Then we realize modernizing this battle tank may not be the topmost priority. Building a supersonic missile might be a higher priority, right? So let's think about those kind of problems. So I think reprioritization has happened right now.
Did any of your products see action during India's recent operations, be it Sindoor, be it Uri?
Uri, actually, a lot of them. So original Uri strike, the night vision systems which were there were, and Northern Command fielded a lot of our systems out there. We knew about it after they had done the strike, obviously, because we didn't know about it during. After that, because they came and told us about the system. So everything except that ridiculous bird, which had nothing to do with us, right? If you saw the movie, you'd see a bird there, but I don't know if you've seen the movie, which talks about the Uri strike. The night vision systems, in terms of night enablement of the soldiers who went into Uri, a lot of the equipment came from Tonbo. In Sindoor, we built systems which essentially were used on the air defense guns. Right? These were night enablements of the Zu-23 guns, which essentially were used to shoot down drones. So the night vision systems which went in, the thermal imaging systems and the target tracking systems on the Zu-23 were ours. So they were used in both these skirmishes.
In your recent podcast, you talked about Tonbo's philosophy of offering Ferrari at the price of Maruti. Walk us through the thinking behind this mindset.
Point there is, as a company, and if you keep the Maruti and the Ferrari analogy together, right? As a company, we make Ferraris, right? We make a Ferrari engine, we make a Ferrari body, right? We don't make a Maruti engine, we don't make a Maruti body.
Right.
Fundamentally, because we know that the operations which require this, Maruti is a wonderful car, right? But Maruti is not suitable to use in mountainous terrain. It is not a 4-wheel drive. It's not something which is going to go into water. So you need. It's not something which can go at 300 kilometers per hour. Right? So it is not the spec that you have or what is required in terms of the concept of operations today calls for a Ferrari. Right? And we said, look, in terms of our business, what is expected from our products is the capability of a Ferrari. Right?
Yeah.
So we said, if you are a Ferrari, you don't make a lower cost system because you're a Ferrari, because your primary business and your expertise is doing that. Right?
Yeah.
But we realize the fact that there are two problems when it comes to emerging markets. Right? Cost is an important factor. Right? Now, when we go to the Indian customer and you tell them that, listen, I'm making a Ferrari, pay me the cost of a Ferrari. An Indian customer will say, even though I love the product, even though it's fantastic, I salivate over it, but I will not buy it. Budget nahi hai, right? Kitna degi is the problem, right? It's not. It's a thing about not. I am not. I mean, I love it, but I cannot. I don't want to buy it because it's not good enough, right? I mean, in terms of it doesn't meet the number of units that I require.
Right.
So, but international customers appreciate what a Ferrari can do and are willing to pay the price of a Ferrari.
Correct.
So what we do is, we said, I'm not going to build different SKUs, Maruti and a Ferrari, because my brand is a Ferrari, right? That's the reason why Ferrari does not make low-cost cars.
Indeed.
Right? I mean, a Ferrari will not make a Nano, right? Because even though they made Nano, people said it, but it's just not in their DNA, right? So we said, but we still want to sell to the emerging market. We still want to sell high volumes. We have aspiration to be able to sell as many as the Nano or the Maruti. So how do we do it? So we said, let's sell in the international market for the price of a Ferrari. Let's sell in the Indian market for something which is little bit more than a Maruti, right? Maybe not the Maruti, but a little bit more. And convince the customer that he's not going anywhere close to a Ferrari price, but he's going to like maybe a Maruti plus 10% or 20%, right? And you know, using the combination and the average of these two, you can run a fairly profitable business, right? Because you're building a spec. Because my problem is, if I have to build a Maruti, I have to build new specs and I can sell it only in India. It doesn't make sense, right? So I said, let's build a Ferrari, get the appreciation of a Ferrari for a global market and sell it in India. And we found that the Indian customer over the last 5-7 years, it took us to build this credibility. They valued that more, right? They said, great, we are getting this high spec system. Sure, it costs a little more than what it is, and now we have actually managed to get it, because when you're competing in a tender, ultimately it is the lowest cost. I mean, the bidder who's going to win, right? At that point, you're not getting, and the way Indian tenders work is, if let's say the pass mark is 50, whether you make 52 or whether you make 98 is irrelevant, right? They both treated the same way, right? But the lowest cost bidder will work, right? So we said, look, we have to ensure that we are the lowest priced bidder. At the same time, we don't want to dilute our spec. We will make a Ferrari, right? And so that's what we sell to the customer.
I think the Ministry of Defense has earmarked 2025-2026 as the year of reforms. If your opinion were to be taken on a couple of changes that need to be made so that India becomes one of the top 10 defense exporters, what would you articulate?
See, I think India has got the potential to be a defense exporter just from a geopolitical point of view right now, because most of the world used to buy from the US, Israel and Russia. Right. Now they've realized that all these countries have their own problems. US is definitely unreliable, right? There's no point. Israel has got tons of problems. They can't supply easily. Russia obviously has fighting their own wars. India is in a state where the products are good quality. India is non-aligned in the sense that we are happy to sell to anyone who's a true friendly country, right? Correct. I mean, anyone who's not going to misuse it. And people are now turning to the point where they realize that India is a good potential supplier, right? And Armenia was a great example. I mean, Bharat Forge and Bharat Electronics, Bharat Dynamics, we all sold to Armenia last year, right? And 2 years, because they realized that India is a good, strong, reliable supplier of fundamental technology or products which can come in from there. So I think we are already geopolitically, we are based very well. For us to become an exporter and a strong exporter, I told the ministry many years back as well, is when you go to a European defense show, you have Saab from Sweden, right? And our companies like Saab. If you go to their booth, you will find that the defense minister of the country of Sweden will be at a Saab booth, right?
Interesting.
The ambassador of Sweden to the US or any of those guys will be at the booth, and they will be there saying, "This is our company," right? Without fear of retribution, thinking that look,
why are you
supporting a particular private sector? Do you have a vested interest, right? Because they are saying this is a company coming from our country, we own it, right? I think if India wants to be a true exporter, we need that sitting there. You need the chief of defense staff, you need the defense minister sitting in a booth in a foreign expo, standing, because they have enough political capital, they have enough clout. If they are there, enough people are going to come in there. They go and say, and they shouldn't be sitting in public sector enterprises, right? They should, because public sector enterprises are fine. I mean, they're doing what they're doing. I mean, you sitting in
already have the backing.
They're sitting in a HAL booth or sitting in a Bharat Electronics booth. It's not sit in booths of private companies which are already selling a lot. Sit in booths of private companies which have made a difference there and say, this is our company. without worrying that our company does not mean anything, but saying I have ownership because we are both Indian, this is our company, right? I think that is, in my mind, if you ask me, that is the single most important thing which will matter when it comes to export out there, right? Because otherwise the government...
So projecting a unified face.
Absolutely, right? Saying that there is a commonality of purpose. We as a company, our purpose is to sell to defense and democratize defense. India as saying that, look, we would like to export and we want to make sure we democratize it to other countries. Let's show that unified face. And if we are able to do that, because the rest of the stuff they do, they've eased the export process, they've made meetings with foreign defense attaches, they're doing all the tactical stuff. Right. I'm saying they need to do the strategic stuff right now, right? And this is strategic, right? Because you sit in UAE, you sit in Africa, you sit in Southeast Asia, and you project this. I think that's going to be phenomenally valuable.
Finally, as a defencepreneur, what keeps you up at night?
Nothing, actually. I sleep like a baby. If I said anything otherwise, I would be untrue. Okay. I do sleep like a baby, and I think I sleep like a baby fundamentally because from a company point, right? I mean, see, typically people have a lot of things keeping them aside because you're worried about, is a company, I mean, are they doing the right thing? I mean, are the people, do I need to manage fires? People manage these fires without me interfering in it, right? If what I do in it, I would interfere. They do a great job, right? So we have a fantastic team. So your job has got to be hire the right team, trust them to do their job, right?
Right.
And if they did that, you as a founder don't need anything to worry about. I mean, you can think about, what are the interesting problems you want to solve. All of those are exciting, interesting things to do, which you can do and then go to sleep because you still are, I mean, it is mentally satisfying.
Yeah.
Your business is doing well. There's nothing which should keep you. So quite honestly, nothing really keeps me awake at night.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you so much, Arvind, for being at your candid best. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was elucidating, enlightening. Got to learn a lot about the defense tech space and about Tonbo's operations as a company. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Adith. Pleasure, and thank you for having me. Right?
Absolutely. That's it, folks, for today. If this episode resonates, please like, share, comment, share it in your networks, and I will be back with yet another inspiring story of a defencepreneur that's building for Atmanirbhar Bharat.